Noah Hawley is the creator of the television adaptation of Fargo. I'm Matt Noble at Gold Derby. And I want to start off by asking you, Noah, from your perspective, is Fargo a circle or a line?
I think it's a series of circles, concentric circles, a Venn diagram potentially of circles, of stories that are interconnected, sometimes thematically, sometimes literally, and all of them an exploration of this country that we live in and this social contract that we've entered into, and people who honor it and people who reject it, and how we can live a better life.
Mm. And this is your fifth installment or iteration of Fargo, your fifth story. What was something that you wanted to say with this one or do with this one that you hadn't done before?
Well, the movie coined this idea of Minnesota nice, that there's in the middle of the country, there's a sort of Lutheran mindset of sort of passive aggressivity, of people who are going to smile no matter what, and pretend like everything's all right even when it's not, and that tends to lead to a collapse that often ends in violence. And we went along for 4 seasons with the idea that that was still true. And then I think in the last few years, we've seen school board meetings erupting into violence, and people stop pretending that they're happy. And it's become a very aggressive country. And so I wanted to look at that. What does that mean in 2019 for people who still want to live in a society together past that polarized nature?
Yeah, and the season opens with quite a contentious parents meeting, and that's the episode that you've been nominated for writing and directing this year at the Emmys. What was a particular highlight of that episode for you?
Well, in terms of filming, we have this big roadside pullover that leads to a shootout, an action sequence toward the end of the episode. That was about a week of production that really involved a lot of uh, logistics, but also, I love telling the story with the camera as much as possible, and letting characters emerge through behavior, and the level of detail. I mean, she runs into this convenience store, her hands are zip tied behind her, she's barefoot in the winter, and she sees some boxes of biscuit, and she pauses because she knows she owes her daughter breakfast. And she's got to get back to her. And, we do that all without saying a word. And, so I'm very proud of the work that went into that, what's probably an 18-minute sequence.
Mm. And so this season, this fifth season, what was a moment that was particularly special to you, or maybe your favorite moment of the season?
Well, I mean, there's so many, but certainly the way we end, the literal the biscuit of forgiveness. This idea that so many characters in this season had to overcome a lot of trauma in their pasts, and confront it in order to be healthy again. One thing that we always play with in Fargo is denial. There's so many characters in the history of Fargo who've lived in denial with destructive consequences. Bill Macy in the movie, Kirsten Dunst, Martin Freeman. Usually if you're in denial of reality in Fargo, people are dying around you. And I really wanted Juno to be okay, and her family to be okay in the end. And in order to do that, she had to confront the trauma that she had, and come to accept it. And so, that ending, that idea of forgiveness at the other side of trauma, was really powerful for me.
Yeah, it's such an incredibly powerful moment, the end of the season, and I think like even that idea is foreshadowed a little bit with Gator earlier in the episode with
Yeah.
his interaction with Dot. Um, like I guess what I'm like interested in is the show is so like so many different characters looking for power in different places, and where they find power, whether that's the the weapon, like weaponry, or fire money, or other things, like. And you end the season with a scene where we sort of, a bit surprising in some ways, see the power of forgiveness and kindness, and that whole thing. What why did you think that was the right sort of note to end on, and what did you see as the power of forgiveness in this story?
Well, I think what was interesting to me, when I sat down to write that scene, all I really knew was that she was going to come home with her daughter, and that Munch was going to be sitting in the living room with her husband, and I guess what I had expected the scene to be was one final cat and mouse sequence in which maybe action broke out, maybe there was violence, etc. And then I thought, well, that's his scene. That's the scene he wants. But what if she doesn't want to be in his scene? What if she rejects his scene? What if she says, you have to be in my scene? And in my scene, we're halfway to dinner, and it's a school night. And so you can either come back later or wash your hands and help. And, she forced him into the social contract. And through that, through agreeing to kind of put aside the differences for a meal, he found his way to that forgiveness and the power of it. And the real power is always here, right? And Juno showed that the whole season. She faced much larger opponents, much more heavily weaponed opponents, and she won every time because she was creative, and she was an innovator, and she really just ran over everybody.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, especially when you look at like the monk character, is how for 500 years, like from eating sins to
Yeah,
being forgiven over Bisquick, and sort of getting to lighten that load. It was really cool.
the power of a
Uh,
meal.
the power of meal. What what with Fargo, there is like tone vacillations. It's got this lovely sort of like, there'll be moments of like just profound quiet. There'll be moments of action. There'll be moments of comedy. When you're going to write these episodes, how do you balance all of those different elements and tone and find a voice for the show?
Well, there's a real ambition in Fargo for me in balancing both story and theme and character, entertainment and action. And so, in that balance, it's all in the pursuit of creating a cinematic experience. There's such a mixture of elements in Fargo always, which is, the mixture between the philosophical aspects of it, the entertainment aspects of it, the violence, the ideas, and really the balance of what goes into it is a very ambitious sense of can I tell you a story that moves you, um, like it's moving me right now, and and entertain you at the same time. And if you entertain people, they give you permission to do more with theme or character. And so, all to the degree of trying to do something that seems elevated above just you know, you wasted a good hour.
Mm. And Fargo is one of those shows that like will let scenes breathe, will let characters have their moments, won't over explain things. Uh you seem to trust your audience of the show. Is that true? Like is that a
I
correct
do. I mean,
assumption?
I feel like audiences are very sophisticated, much more so than, 10 or 15 years ago. You think about the volume of story that people watch. I mean, my son is 11. He's devoured more visual storytelling in 11 years than I had seen in the first 30 years of my life, And so audience, yeah, you got to give audiences a lot of credit. They're usually ahead of you, right? They're very good at picking up, cinematic hints about turns, twists, who killed who, who's sleeping with who, all those things. And you know, I always think of myself as a viewer, right? Which is like, would I need more than I'm being given right now? And so, you know, every once in a while in the editing room, I think, oh, they're talking about something. Do I need to flash back to it to remind the audience? And I always try to resist that impulse, because I know later if I rewatch this, I'm going to feel like, oh, they didn't need that. I like audiences.
Yeah. In that final scene, Dot says that, like, it's a choice. You make a choice. You're not, but it sort of, I think it's referring to not being bound by this debt he feels he has to pay back. What was a choice that you made what was the biggest choice you made this season?
Well, I made a choice to do a 10-minute puppet show in the middle of the 7th episode as a way to try to engage with the very difficult subject of domestic violence, and to tell you Dot's story in a way that you know the audience would not look away from, would not create a fresh trauma for them. You know, and you know, this is an abuse that occurred to her when she was 15, 16 years old. I mean, when she was a child, basically. And you know, what is a puppet show except a way that we tell stories to children? And it really felt like, you know, such an interesting way to try to engage with this material and show it to the audience in a way, you know, because we all can put up barriers to difficult subjects, but I felt like if we did it in that way, um, you know, it would pull you in, and it would make it easier to absorb, and honestly, I think a little more emotional for the audience.
Mm. You won the Emmy for Best Limited Series for Fargo for the very first season of the show about a decade ago. Uh,
Yeah.
Firstly, what did that Emmy mean to you, winning that?
Well, you know, that season, that year, it was 40 below zero, which, you know, whether it's Fahrenheit or Celsius, they meet at 30. So it was a very hard season to produce. We had no money to do it. I assumed that two people would watch a show called Fargo based on the movie, and one of them would hate watch it. And so what it really was a recognition, you know, after having made two shows for ABC, that where, you know, let's just say that the demand for greatness was lower. Um, you know, I had made something that I thought was my, and I was validated in that thought. And, you know, it really created so much opportunity for me to continue to tell these stories, and to be able to make Legion and now Alien. And you know, I don't take it for granted that I have never been pigeonholed in this career, and that I get to experiment as a storyteller, and that statue bought me that.
Mm. And 5 years, sorry, 10 years later, 5 seasons later, like, on that journey, like, how has that show, like, where is Fargo now compared to where it was all those years ago? Are you surprised with where it's at? Have you seen it change, or is it sort of the same?
Yeah, it's interesting, the evolution. It's, you know, it's like, you know, people talk about a joke, and that it's funny the first time and funny the second time, and then the third time it's not funny, the fourth time it's really not funny, the fifth time it's funny again, right? Like there's something to, you know, people, something is new, and then the second season it capitalizes on that newness and people really appreciate it. And then, you know, maybe there's an interim period in which you start to take it for granted a little bit. But I do feel like the way that we've grappled with the issues that we in America are going through right now, you know, in the season, with a sense of humor and a positive outlook, I think that really revitalized the show for a lot of people.
Mm. And to finish off, Noel, what just, so, like, you wrote the season. You've written all these series of Fargo. When all was said and done on the season, what surprised you most about the sort of end product?
I mean, what surprised me really creatively about it was, how much I could strip away. You know, I really wanted this to be a lean season. There's no episode that's over 44 minutes. There's not a lot of navel gazing. It's really, out of the frying pan into the fire, and just, and I was surprised by how effective that was. I think I was responding to my own feelings as a viewer that in the height of peak TV, where we were making, myself included, 65-minute episodes, and this expansive sense of what television could be, that there's something just about a great story well told that is timeless.
Yeah. And and just quickly, if you would in one sentence say the strength of this season's story, what would it be?
I think the strength of this season is resilience. It's characters who by all rights should give up, but don't.
Yeah. Well, Noah, all the best of luck with the upcoming Emmy Awards. People love the Emmy Awards. Go to goldderby.com, the leading awards website or place to follow the awards. And it's just been great to chat, Noah. It's an awesome season. So all the best of luck with all the Emmy Awards this year.
Thanks so much.